to another Traveler's Notes where I share with you what I've learned on the path of the seeker. As we looked at Joseph Campbell's hero's journey and applied it to the path of the seeker, there was a very important element that I didn't dig into too deeply because it deserves its own video. That concept is atonement with the Father. Since we live in a patriarchal society, that is, a male-oriented society, it's natural that the figure we find the most frightening would be the father figure. It also makes sense that we would associate the one creator with this concept. Although, in my opinion, the one creator is neither male or female. Interestingly, when reinterpreting the hero's journey to apply it to writing, the element representing atonement with the Father is called crisis. This is a stage where the character must grow and overcome whatever obstacle is keeping them from what they seek. I think it's interesting that atonement with the Father would be considered a crisis. When I heard the word atonement, I always thought that it was referring to payment for some reason, or punishment. If you look up the definition for atonement, you find this. 1. Payment for wrong or injury. 2. Payment for a sin, religious context. 3. The reconciliation of God and humankind through Jesus Christ. So that's the current definition of atonement. Nothing in that even slightly implies oneness, or at-one-ment. However, when you look up the origin of the word, you learn that it was totally different when it first started out. It started off as at-one-ment, meaning unity. It's normal for words to change and evolve over time, especially with slang, but for me, this one in particular is a little sad. If you Google atonement and at-one-ment, it will pop up a little screen that explains on Google. The English word atonement originally meant at-one-ment, being at one in harmony with someone. I was surprised that the origin of the word is at-one-ment. I never encountered that word being used that way at church or by any person who was trying to tell me about atonement. The main reason I was surprised is because when reading the Edgar Cayce material, he always says atonement as at-one-ment. I thought it was just a nifty little reimagination of the word by Edgar Cayce. I was baffled when I discovered that atonement originally meant finding harmony and being in union with the one creator, compared to what that word has become. Now, to explain why I think this is such a sad de-evolution of word, let me quote Edgar Cayce. Not that it, the entity, hasn't its own free will, but it, the entity or soul, develops either to a oneness with the universal consciousness or in opposition to the same. What is will? That which makes for the dividing like between the finite and the infinite, the divine and the wholly human, the carnal and the spiritual. For the will may be one with him, or for self alone. For me, oneness is common sense. I have always been able to tune into oneness. In fact, I took that for granted, and I was startled when I discovered that other people cannot tune into the oneness as I can. I think John Van Auken puts the reason for why we have to seek at-one-ment with the one creator the best. When our souls descended from heaven and first entered the earth, it was because of an attraction to the carnal or material forces. Not that these are to be despised in any way, for all life is one. But we must learn to be willing to set aside our attachment to the material and carnal for short periods if we are to find the spiritual influences we seek. Once we've learned to abide in universal consciousness, our relationship to the carnal and material forces will be transformed. We can then more actively serve as a conduit or channel for the influence of universal consciousness here on earth. At the heart of all religions and almost every messenger I've ever listened to, from Bashar to the raw material to the Bible to Muhammad, is the concept of oneness. The concept of oneness can be tough for us because it tends to sound like a contradiction to the existence that we know. How can we experience ourselves as ourselves and yet still be one with the Creator? There is an answer to that paradox, but I'll have to delve into that in another video. There's a good reason why the crisis of atonement is on the opposite side of the normal life in the cycle of Joseph Campbell's hero's journey. Of all the spiritual sources that I have read, the book A Course in Miracles was the most challenging. However, it was the fact that I knew that Edgar Cayce said atonement as at-one-ment that I actually understood that book. That book is all about at-one-ment and explaining how and why the ego is a block to at-one-ment. I'm not one to talk about ego death. In fact, I don't consider ego to be quite what people describe it as, but I see it as the mask that we wear, a persona. We build these personas, or identities, up, these characters identifying ourselves with a bunch of worldly things, but that's not the essence of our being. That's why meditation can bring people in touch with understanding oneness. You begin to realize that you are not your thoughts. You become aware that beyond your racing thoughts, there is an observer. At-one-ment is awesome and should be looked forward to by everyone on the path of the seeker. At the very least, there should be a goal of understanding what at-one-ment means. Once you catch a glimpse of this concept, you will find them everywhere. It's amazing how the message is always the same no matter the channel. Believe me, I have tons of quotes about oneness. I will cover that concept in next month's Traveler's Notes. Here's a fantastic quote from A Course in Miracles about the separation and atonement. In the creation, God extended himself to his creations and imbued within them the same loving will to create. You have not only been fully created, but have also been created perfect. There is no emptiness in you. Because of your likeness to your Creator, you are creative. No child of God can lose his ability because it is inherent in what he is, but he can use it inappropriately by projecting. The inappropriate use of extension or projection occurs when you believe that some emptiness or lack exists in you, and that you can fill it with your own ideas instead of truth. This process involves the following steps. First, you believe that what God created can be changed by your own mind. Second, you believe that what is perfect can be rendered imperfect or lacking. Third, you believe you can distort the creation of God, including yourself. Fourth, you believe that you can create yourself and that the direction of your own creation is up to you. These related distortions represent a picture of what actually occurred in the separation or the detour into fear. None of this existed before the separation, nor does it actually exist now. Well, that is a little taste of this concept for now. I could spend hours quoting different sources about oneness and at-one-ment. What I hope you take away from this is the idea that atonement is not scary. Atonement is not punishment. Atonement is simply realizing that your will should be the same as the one Creator's, and then choosing to do everything you can to bring the one Creator's will into this world. There is some personal work you have to do first before you can attain atonement. Because if you're afraid of things you've done or ashamed of yourself, how will you have the courage to stand before the one Creator? That process of integrating and sifting through your beliefs so that you can stand before the one Creator would be the road of trials in Joseph Campbell's hero's journey. However, I strongly suggest you undertake that work because it is so worth it. I hope this video helped illuminate that concept for you so that you do not fear it and see it as an idea that you should strive for in your daily life. And thank you so much for watching. It means the world to me.